Thanks so much for your interest in the redesign of the general education curriculum. I wanted to just take a few minutes just to talk through the progress and the process that we've been through over the last few months. Really, the general education redesign grew out of work that began with College 2025 and the momentum year. Really, as we undertook that work, it became very clear that the general education curriculum that we had that was created more than 20 years ago really needed to be recreated with a future in mind, a new general education structure for a new century. And so back in May, the Chancellor announced that redesign, and we began working with a design committee that had both faculty and academic administrators, but also students and industry representatives. And then throughout the summer, that redesign committee began to work to understand what should the new general education design do? What should the structure be set out to achieve? Now, we brought those design principles to the board in September, and those design principles were approved. And then throughout the rest of the fall and now early spring, I've been working with a much larger group, a group of more than 40 faculty and staff, academic administrators, presidents, and also students, but also registrars and people involved in advising, and really, and also faculty from all of the major disciplines across the system, all of the chairs of advisory councils, to be able to think, okay, so how do we take those design principles, the vision that is created, and actually implement that as our new general education structure. And then at the February board meeting, I presented the presentation that I'm now showing you for the board, to the board, so that they could see the direction that group is suggesting that we go for our new structure for our general education. Let me talk a little bit about the structure that we currently have, and then how the new design principles look to try to overcome some drawbacks from the current structure. Clearly, we've had the current structure, areas A through E, for more than 20 years in our system, and I think you may well know those as communications and quantitative skills, arts and humanities, science, math, and technology, and then the two social science courses. When students take those social science courses, of course, they also are expected to satisfy the legislative requirements. And then all of that is rounded out to 42 hours by some variation between institutions in the numbers of hours in those different areas. Those 42 hours are then supplemented by Area F courses, another 18 credit hours. Those Area F courses are, of course, the preparatory material for the major. What we saw as we began to look at this curriculum is, first of all, that it is very, very structured. All of those 42 hours in the core curriculum are completely scaffolded out. There really is no opportunity for a student ever to explore or to be intellectually curious or to experiment with the courses that they take or the program that they pursue. Equally well, there's a very limited amount of opportunity for institutions to be able to create an institutional character or an institutional option. There's, of course, the one course in Area B, but that's somewhat limited in the ways in which institutions can do that. It's also the case that the current curriculum really, the time horizon for that is really to prepare students for the degree that they are undertaking. As things currently stand, the areas A through E are very much kind of a sort of just simply a list of classes that students are expected to take, and that's very much the spirit in which they undertake that. As you talk to students about what they think they're doing as they take their core curriculum, they think of it very much as a kind of a checkbox, just checkbox list, a list of courses that we insist that they take. So the vision of the design principles is really very different, but still very much grounded in the tradition of the liberal arts. So we still in the design principles, the new design principles envisage a core curriculum in which students still receive a very well-rounded and foundational education, really recognizing that that is much more important than it ever has been in the past. In the future, we know that students who are graduating from our institutions today, often they will have maybe a dozen new careers throughout the course of their lives. Maybe half of those careers haven't even been invented yet. And so to prepare for the rest of their lives, we now need to enable students to be much more well-rounded and foundationally trained than they ever have been in the past. Similarly, it is really important that that curriculum is infused with 21st century skills. Actually, as we've received input from well over 1,000 faculty now and asked them what they thought was the most foundational aspect of the general education. And at the top of the list came things like critical thinking, creative thinking, research, and synthesis. And so it's really crucial that we take those aspects and absolutely infuse them into the curriculum that we expect for the general education. Similarly, we are now envisaging a curriculum which prepares students for the rest of their lives. Yes, to be successful in the workplace, but just as importantly, to be successful and well prepared to be an engaged and productive citizen as part of the community, and to be a lifelong learner, yes, across the rest of their career, but equally well across the rest of their lives in all of the different aspects of their life. We want to make sure that all of this comes together as a coherent whole. It's actually a very foundational aspect of the AAC&U LEAP work, that all of the general education should be tied together in a connected and coherent fashion. And so one of the redesign principles of the new general education exactly says that this is what we want of our new structure. And then, of course, and this has been something that this system has stood behind for a long time, whatever the new system, it needs to provide 60 transferable credits that are seamlessly transferable across our system. So this is the current structure. Let me show you how it is that we propose transforming that to our new structure. So you can see in the new proposed structure, the 42 credit hours that we used to have in our core curriculum has been slimmed down to 33 credit hours. And in doing so, we both focus the content of those core elements as well as providing significantly more flexibility, both for institutions and also for students. Let me begin with the institutional flexibility. Clearly, we have 26 very different institutions across our system, and this general education curriculum is intended to be one general education core for our whole system. And so it's incumbent on that work to make sure that we provide enough flexibility to our institutions so that they really can impute the mission and the role, the character of that institution into the curriculum that they provide for their students. So this institutional options part of the curriculum is a really important aspect of that. Now, similarly, we've added 9 credit hours of exploratory courses into the general education. And this really will allow students to be able to explore, yes, to begin in one major, only to discover perhaps that they now see that something else is much more of interest to them or much better fit. They may be, gives students an opportunity to be intellectually curious, to take a course that they might otherwise never be able to take as part of their program of study, or of course, to just simply have an opportunity to personalize and bespoke their curriculum, to take courses in their major or out of their major and dig so much more deeply into that subject area in ways that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. So those exploratory courses really will allow students to be able to try out all kinds of different aspects of their curriculum in ways currently unavailable to them. You see in the core elements that arts and humanities and mathematics, science, history and government is now called out, the legislative requirement, rather than being a hidden footnote before, is now front and center, is part of the experience. But now we've added into those core elements digital and data fluency. We believe in the modern world that essentially every career will have some significant interaction with data and technology, and it's crucial that students should have the skills and knowledge base to be able to use those tools well. And then similarly, in the modern world, it's just crucial for you to be able to to communicate your ideas clearly and cogently and persuasively, both in a written and an oral format. And so we're recommending having a core element of oral communication that not only trains students to be able to speak in a public speaking setting, but also to work effectively in teams, multidisciplinary teams, where they're able to bring their field into a group of other ideas. And then lastly, written communication. You can see we're suggesting to modify the current written communication so that at least one of those courses would actually specifically address students being able to write well in the genre of their discipline. Those are the subject-based elements of the core, but of course, already said how important we see making sure that throughout all of those core elements, we specifically address ideas around critical thinking, global competence, and also information literacy. And so in this new proposed structure, we will deliberately infuse all of those subject-based elements with critical thinking and creative thinking, synthesis, research, problem solving, and then also ideas of ethics and global perspective, and of course citizenship, and then lastly addressing issues of information literacy and technology and data literacy as well. Taking those cross-cutting elements and deliberately infusing them all across. As I say, we've now heard from more than 1,000 faculty around these ideas, and all simply agree that these cross-cutting kinds of competencies, they are not specific to any one discipline or any one field, but in fact look and feel a little different in each of those disciplines and each of those ways of knowing. And it's critical that we address all of those aspects throughout the whole curriculum. Lastly, we need to, as I say, make sure that all of this is tied together in a deliberate way. And so we will be asking campuses to create what we call a thematic journey through the core elements, through the general education curriculum. These thematic journeys, the idea is that faculty on a campus would design maybe 5, maybe 6, maybe 10, maybe 7, depending on the size of the campus and the portfolio of different degrees that they have, some number of thematic journeys, some way to work your way through, in a curated way, through the core elements of the curriculum, but in a way where students understand an underlying theme or an underlying common element. So you can imagine maybe students would study their core elements with a design and creativity theme, or with a data and technology theme, or with a global perspectives theme, or perhaps with all of those core elements being tied together by some broad, gnarly problem which can be looked at from all kinds of different perspectives and all kinds of different views, all tied together across the elements of the core curriculum. So to summarize, the proposed redesign will have 33 hours of the core elements consisting of those 8 subject-based areas, as well as 3 institutional options. As well as that, having an expectation of written communication in the genre of the field as part of the field of study courses. All of that then together with exploratory courses that the students will be able to explore the curriculum and bespoke their degrees. The core elements will be deliberately infused with 21st century skills like critical thinking and global competence and information literacy. And then lastly, all tied together by these thematic journeys, making a altogether 60 seamlessly transferable hours institution to institution. I thank you for your time in watching this short video. We hope that you will provide your feedback about your thoughts and ideas about this proposed redesign, and together I'm sure that we'll be able to make the proposal even stronger than it currently is. Thank you.